Chapter 26. Labor's Glory. The days of idleness following the hunger strike passed quietly. I wandered around Zone A, observing the messages on the walls. There were 4 main types of notices posted everywhere. The 4 standards of reform, the 36 camp rules, the 20 commandments for a new cultural lifestyle, and the 19 rules on labor discipline. The so-called 4 standards of reform were 4 regulations that every detainee had to follow to be considered reformed. The most critical requirement was to confess one's crimes and report the crimes of others, whether they were already detained or still outside in society. I can't recall the exact wording, but the essence was as follows: sincerely confess all concealed or incomplete crimes. Honestly report the crimes of accomplices and other anti-revolutionaries you know, whether they have been arrested or remain in society. Actively participate in educational reform and take responsibility for helping other detainees in their reform efforts. Comply with camp rules. Refrain from propagating counter-revolutionary ideas or engaging in sabotage. Voluntarily and conscientiously engage in labor. Actively participate in educational reform and propose innovative ideas for managing and educating detainees and enhancing the camp's productivity. The camp rules consisted of 36 regulations divided into 4 sections: general provisions, disciplinary for learning, cultural lifestyle, and labor. The 4 standards of reform were the most important and were displayed everywhere in the camp. The officials frequently reminded us that a detainee's chance to return to society depended on how well they adhered to these standards. This created confusion among detainees between personal progress and self-respect, because following these standards often required actions that went against the interests of others. This was a dangerous tactic by the communists to sow division among detainees and maintain control over the camp. In such circumstances, who wouldn't want to leave the camp? Distrust grew among detainees, making it easier for the communists to manage the camp. A few days after the hunger strike incident, the camp atmosphere grew increasingly subdued. On the second Monday following the strike, an official entered our cell and called out Yin and Bin, the 2 team leaders in our room, instructing them to select 10 detainees to accompany him to retrieve improved cards for the next day's labor. What are improved cards? We asked each other. I joined the group to collect the cards. The official explained that the improved cards were tools designed to relieve the burden on our shoulders by allowing us to pull rather than carry loads. It was a peculiar explanation. However, we couldn't figure out what was improved about these cards. Did they have some sort of machinery or other enhancements? Dressed in our prison uniforms and wearing odd-looking pit helmets made from palm leaves, we followed the official as we passed through the camp gates. He instructed us to remove our hats. We glanced at each other in surprise. Though we said nothing, we silently felt the indignity of the defeated. It was late April, and the northern weather was still chilly. We walked along a muddy clay road by the brick wall at the front of the camp. Crude drawings on the wall depicted detainees engaged in various activities. Pale purple neem flowers covered the ground, and fresh buds emerged from the bare branches. Locals called it the melancholy tree because it was the only tree in the north that shed all its leaves in winter. The so-called improved carts turned out to be wooden hand carts with a box about 1.5 meters long, 1 meter wide, and 0.5 meter high. They were mounted on 2 iron wheels with rubber rims. 2 wooden shafts extended from the box for pulling. We pulled 5 carts along the clay road beside the camp fence, heading toward a brick kiln near Amai Creek. At that time, Amai Creek was shallow. Its banks stretched far into the distance. The creek flowed into a branch of the Red River, so its water level rose and fell with the river. During the rainy season, the Red River's water surged, sometimes breaking dikes and flooding the northern plains. The official informed us that during heavy rains, The creek's water could reach the road and flow strongly. From afar, Subcamp K3 appeared on the other side of the creek. The only way to travel from K5 to K3 was by a bamboo raft operated by a detainee. A steel cable stretched between two concrete posts on either side of the creek, and the raft was connected to the cable by a pulley. The raft operator used a pole to push it from one bank to the other. A dirt path led from the clay road down to the raft landing. On the right side of the clay road, I noticed a few thatched huts, which the officials said were workshops for detainees working as carpenters. The field behind the camp were completely desolate, overgrown with tall grass and dense shrubs. More than a kilometer from the camp, a brick kiln rose high in the distance, with its walls made of earth and a roof covered in rusty tin sheets. The land around the stove had been excavated, resembling an ancient city being dug up for archaeological relics. A flat yard beside the stove served as the brick molding area. We pulled the cart into a shed next to the brick stove, which was the quarters for the supervising officer. He told Yuyan that he would come the next day to guide the team for their first day of labor, then escorted us back to the camp, near the stream by the bend leading into the camp. Close to the water pump, the officer informed us that as a reward for our work, we were allowed 15 minutes to bathe and wash. We hurried down to the stream, stripped off our clothes, and bathed quickly. It was almost noon and still a bit chilly. We had to return to the camp in wet clothes. Not just us, the group that went to collect the cart, but every inmate in the camp was puzzled by the term innovation. When we described the appearance of the improved cart, everyone burst out laughing. From that point on, the words innovation or improvement became subject of mockery. Improved cart, improved food, innovative clothes, and so on. We coined the phrase random improvement to refer to people who scavenged whatever they could, and became a commonly used term in the re-education camp. The inmates were ready to work in the days to come. We had been informed that the party and the state had brought us here to provide us with the favorable conditions for labor re-education. One way or another, we had to work and work hard. A popular phrase was used as a substitute for forced labor. Labor is glory. This slogan had become familiar to everyone in the country since the communist takeover. Not only we, the camp inmates, but all citizens knew that labor is glory. The communists claimed that through labor, humanity evolved from apes to modern humans, and through labor, people will provide wealth for society. The development of society depended on the labor of its people. Thus, everyone in social society had to work for themselves and for the social. In the camp, labor was the measure of each inmate's progress. They claimed it was rehabilitation through labor. I believed all these explanations were just excuses to force people to work. But in that situation, what choice did we have other than to do what the VC told us to do? Resisting their orders would mean an early death. The only way was to accept the circumstances and find a way to survive. Whenever we managed to avoid work, we joked, labor is glory, but idleness is bliss. The camp bell woke us as usual. After roll call, the supervising officer ordered us to send someone to the kitchen to collect our breakfast and prepare for labor. It was our first breakfast at Tan Lap Camp. A ladle of boiled bobo sorghum, difficult to chew due to its hard husks. Except for a few who were truly ill and permitted by the infirmary to rest, or those assigned to clean the barracks, everyone had to line up in the yard behind the camp gate. There were already rows of stakes with small boards bearing team names planted in the ground. The inmates squatted in two lines according to their teams. On the far right were two teams of criminal convicts. They looked filthy and emaciated, wearing faded, tattered clothes. Looking at them and then at myself, I shuddered. How long could this prison uniform last? And how long could I personally endure these conditions? An officer in uniform, with a rank of senior lieutenant, introduced himself as Deputy Warden Bang, in charge of Subcamp K5. He gave a speech to mark our first day of labor. Nothing new. We, criminals of the state and people, had to reform our sins. The party and state had brought us here to provide favorable conditions for our re-education. To return to our families and society, we had to achieve progress. There were 3 key points for achieving progress in re-education: learning, labor, and abiding by camp rules. Among these, labor was the most important. We had to give our utmost effort in labor because it was a measure of each person's progress. Like other officers, Bang repeated the rhetoric drilled into him. Bang was in his early 40s, with a Namdin accent that often mixed up the L and N sounds, revealing his peasant background, a primary base of the VC. I had heard that to join the communist police, one had to have at least 3 generations of peasant ancestry. The communists claimed that this class had nothing to lose but a pair of torn shorts. Upon victory, they would gain everything. A compelling reason to join the revolution. The intelligentsia and bourgeoisie were deemed unfaithful to party, while peasants and workers were considered the most loyal classes. After Bang finished his speech, several officers entered the camp. They were the management officers, or team supervisors, responsible for overseeing labor teams. The supervising officer called each team to work, started with the criminal teams, then moving to us in order from Team 1 to Team 8. When a team was called, the team leader would shout, "Everyone stand up, remove hats," and then stand at attention. Once the team was ready, the leader faced the supervising officer and reported the total number of inmates, the number sick or excused, and the number going out for labor. The inmates marched out in pairs through the gate, holding their hats turned upward, right hand for the right side, left hand for the left side. This, they said, was to make it easier to check if anything was hidden inside the hats. But I believe it was to enforce submissiveness. A line of armed guards waited outside the camp. The supervisors accompanied the inmates, while 2 armed guards, also called security officers, followed behind. In the initial days, we were divided into 8 teams with the following tasks. Teams 1 and 2, the brick-making teams, were responsible for brick making. Team 3, the green vegetable team, grew vegetables. Team 4, the construction team, repaired camp buildings and facilities. Teams 5, 6, 7, and 8, the agricultural teams, worked the fields around the camp. Additionally, there were criminal teams such as the livestock team, which raised pigs, cows, and poultry, the forest product team, which gathered firewood, and the kitchen team, which prepared food. Other criminals worked independently, known as broad service, performing tasks for officers or agencies without supervision. We silently walked along the path I had taken the previous day to the brickyard. Our team, Team 1, was a brick-making team. There were 2 teams at the stove. Team 1 prepared the soil, and Team 2 molded the bricks. Our work involved digging soil, carrying water from the stream to mix with the soil, herding buffalo to knead the soil, and carrying prepared soil to the yard for Team 2. The dry season made the clay mixed with sand very hard. To dig it, we had to use pickaxes and crowbars. Shovels were useless. The soil was excavated from around the area and transported to a small central pit using improved carts. The most arduous task was hauling water from the stream about 500 meters away. We carried pairs of water buckets, each holding about 40 liters, on a rough, uneven path. The pit for mixing soil and water was about 2 meters deep, requiring steps to carry water down and haul soil up for Team 2. Some inmates wove bamboo carriers for 2 people to transport the soil, made of intertwined bamboo slats with handles. Our team was divided into 3 groups, rotating between carrying water, preparing soil, and hauling it to the brick molding yard. It was grueling work, especially in the sun, as molding bricks was impossible in the rain. After the soil and water were prepared, 2 inmates led 2 buffaloes into the pit to trample the mixture until it was consistent. If any spots were uneven, we had to stamp them with our feet. This task was called buffalo kneading. Once the soil was thoroughly kneaded, we used shovels and pickaxes for a final mix, forming piles ready for transport to the molding yard. This process was called forming the batch. Upon arriving at the stove, the supervising officer ordered me to split bamboo for others to weave carriers. Not knowing how, I split the bamboo into strips instead of thin slats. The officer said nothing but reassign me to soil preparation instead. At noon, he gathered the team and singled me out as an example of someone ignorant of labor, claiming that under the old regime, I had lived off the labor of others. That night in our barracks, we had a criticism and self-criticism session, where I was again the topic of discussion until I admitted my faults. I finally confessed that I had no experience with manual labor because I had only studied as a child and worked intellectual jobs as an adult. I promised to try harder to keep up with the others. From that day onward, we labored from morning till evening, followed by nightly sessions to review our daily work until bells signaled bedtime. Molding bricks was no easier than soil preparation. We had to squat on the yard all day under the sun. Soil transported to the yard was piled into small heaps, and the brick makers used wooden frames to press the soil, compact it, and shape it into bricks. They arranged the bricks in rows, removed the frames, and repeated the process. It seemed simple, but under the scorching sun, squatting and crawling all day from one spot to another caused severe back, hip, and shoulder pain. Moreover, we had to meet daily quotas, which increased over time. Between the 2 tasks of molding bricks and soil preparation, I preferred the latter, even though it was heavier, as it allowed for movement rather than squatting all day. Our team and Team 2 alternated between the 2 tasks. Luckily, I was transferred to the carpentry team after about a month. I wasn't sure how much longer I could have endured brickmaking. Labor truly was glorious, especially forced labor. In the camp, we always had to adhere to the slogan voluntary and self-disciplined labor. But if we didn't volunteer, they would force us to work or punish us in every possible way.